All right, so I want to talk about what's the difference between the architecture and all the code and code files created. So the first thing, if you look at the architecture of your program, that will include things like what are you using? Are you using a React? How do you do authentication? Is it through Superbase? Uh, how is your database structure look like? Uh, and things like that. That's all to do with the architecture of your system, right? Uh, then you have just things like files and so forth that is built inside this whole, let's say, building that you've created. So, a menu item, an image, a web page, a pop up window. That's got nothing to do really with the build out of how your project is structured. So, when it comes to structures, there is something called, and let me just open it up nicely for us. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Under docs, I've got something that's called the ADR. Now, in business, when you're going to run business and you write programs and software and so on, uh, there is a system where when the architecture of your program, when that gets influenced, that there need to be some kind of a documentation for it. And it's called architecture decision records, ADRs. So these records you can imagine will be signed off by the head of programming or whoever is in charge of the software, because as soon as you change the structure of your program, that can become serious, right? It can break everything. And that is why there's these ADR records. Now, uh, normally a request will be placed by somebody and then it can be accepted or declined. But we use it for a totally different reason, because I think at this point you do not have people below you that will program. If you're going to have, then implement that. But we use that as context, a very clever way of creating additional context or cursor. What will be in these files? And let me open up one that I've created. Make it smaller. Okay. And what you can see in there is, for instance, parts of, you can see that we have a table. What's the table name? What is the fields in tables? It came up with all kinds of things that was done when we actually first created this structure. Now, when we did our first plan, we actually created the structure. Now, normally you will create a ADR first and then, of course, continue building it. But I'm just doing this. It's not the right way of doing it. I create a full blow plan as we did previously, with questions and everything asked to us. And once I finish testing that whole implementation from that plan, I say create a ADR file for us. All right. Normally you'll do it in advance. Why I didn't do it in advance is because it's not really official document for us. It's like it would be in a company. But secondly is because In planning, I get so many questions asked by AI in the planning stage that after everything is planned and done, then I create my first ADR. But from then on, every time I'm going to make structured changes, I'll first create the ADR. So I'll always then tell Cursor, look, we seems like we're going to make structured changes. Create a ADR for us for these changes that we're going to make. And it will put in database table changes, maybe add extra columns, all kinds of things like that. All right. Now also a ADR will start off with a number, and the next ADR will then have the next ADR we'll create will of course then be 002, then 003. But what makes this extremely nice is Cursor will go through all these ADR files and build up context. It can see tables that was done in the past. So you have really a database structure there that you just keep on updating. It sees what you changed, why you changed it, all very important things when it comes to context. So we can maybe create a ADR right now. And if I'm going to say ADR, Cursor will know immediately what I'm talking about. Create me a new ADR file because I want us to implement at the back end a administration level authentication where we have administrators that can change content for the website, but then also have main administrators that can do system type of changes for the website. All right, and it will create it. If it's going to create it properly, I'm not too sure. It might be clever enough to know that it should now be 002, but we are in the next lesson going to add rules to this ADR or rules for ADR files, and it will start automatically creating these ADR files for us. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is refactoring. Now, if you refactor something, okay, I see it did create this new ADR for us, and it gives all the decisions and so forth. And you really will need to go through it line by line because you're making structural changes. One slip up and you break everything, right? And it will give you even consequences. There's the positives and here's the negatives. More moving parts than a single password. Of course, because we're going to do multi-level authentication and so forth. So it gives you what is the negative of doing it, the positive of doing it, and it's all under consequences. To have it look nice and pretty, you can right click on the MD file and you can say, I can't remember where it is, I haven't used it for a long time. Open preview way to the top. Open preview and it will make it look pretty. So the MD file has been changed into a very nice looking document. Date, everything in there. So we're going to use this, right? And we're going to create rules that sort of forces us to do it. And it's not that we're getting forced to do it as much as that it will now and then request and say, look, this is structured data and remind you uh, about uh, creating these files and then create it on your behalf. Now, the next thing, like I said, I want to talk about refactoring. And the refactoring means simply that you take existing code and optimize it, make it faster, more readable, and so forth. And we will create rules for that as well. Because by making changes to your code, you can increase speed and all kinds of things like that. But also, if a refactoring will mean that the structural changes, we want a rule that says, no, wait a minute, you're just here to optimize the code, not to change to the structure. It is very important that we build all these things in. In the next lesson, you'll also have all the files, that all the rule files that you can just copy, paste, and use. But yes, so in the one hand, we can make structural changes then to the whole structure of our system, but on the other hand, we can also optimize our code inside different files by refactoring it, and uh, we'll build skills for both as well later on. But for now, we're going to set rules to make sure that when you want to optimize a file, that it's not going to try and recreate or change your structures and so forth. So it's getting more complicated, but you know what? Once you have these files that I'm going to give to you, just copy paste them in to your projects, and all this stuff will happen automatically, and you'll always be safe that your structures in your project will not be changed by mistake by the code. That's it. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.